Hello, this is Professor Kim Nelson with the Jewelry Design Department at FIT. Another tutorial in our series of tutorials on the bypass ring project, the design I've been working on for my own example of this. I was all excited to do the video, the final video to do for the stone layout on the shoulders, when I realized I had a couple of problems with the model. At this point I had the choice to either just say, oh, it'll be okay, it looks good, no one's going to really pick it apart, it'll be fine, or to use this as an example to show you what you do when you finish a model and you find it has problems, or worse yet, your client finds it has problems. I've decided to do the latter. The two problems that this model faces, one is right here. Now this little piece doesn't bother me, I can fix that in a heartbeat. That's not the problem. The problem is that this space is less than 4/10 of a millimeter. I connected this with too narrow of a piece of metal to make it an effective casting. It would possibly work, maybe even probably work, but it might not. That needs to be resolved. The other problem has to do with where these two shanks come together. While it is smooth and not unattractive, it was the first layer of surfacing after I did the maquette, and I was excited that I had a good result. But if you look at it from the front, this is awkward. Okay. Now, some of this is unavoidable. There's going to be a thickness here and a thinness here. That is unavoidable, and I'll discuss that in a second. But what is avoidable is this rippling that I have right here. That it creates a very awkward sort of effect as the shank rolls down. The reason I cannot avoid the width, the widening and narrowing, is that the widening is supposedly set up to allow this to rise up higher the way that it does. The challenge is that the highest area of this shank is along the outer edge where the scroll comes up. It is not in the middle, and to establish the thickness of the shank right through here, it's the middle height that you're going to see. And in order to be smooth, it has to round off here. The elevation doesn't start to lift off until here. So it forces us to compromise between these two elevations to have a common elevation for this receding elevation and this climbing elevation. And that commonality is right here, and you can see it because that's where we have the shared surfacing. So I don't so much mind the development of higher, lower, higher. I don't care for the rippling, and I'm going to address both of these. To do so, I'm going to need a lot more layers than what I have right now. So first thing I'm going to do is save out a new version of this. And then I'm going to give myself some curves to work with, some layers to work with. I want to keep those two principal layers. Okay. There. That'll give me a reasonable selection of layers to work from. What I want you to think about or be aware of when it comes to something like this class is that there's a real tendency for us to get attached to our surfaces, to go, oh, I did a beautiful job here, this is working really nice, I don't want to touch it, I don't want to have to deal with it. It's almost a sigh of relief, like, ah, I made that work. It's like it was luck. It isn't luck. Okay, you modeled this using a media just like you would wax or anything else. All of these surfaces are simply fodder for me to use for continued work if I want to. The same way I use the maquette as fodder to build this advanced surfacing. This advanced surfacing is simply fodder, if I want it to be, for more advanced surfacing. So I'm going to come in here and pull off a kit that I can use to fix this using extract surface. I'm going to use copy equals yes, and I want the output layer to be the current layer so that they change layer in a visible way after I pull them off. I'm going to pull off a set of surfaces for the shank section, and I'm going to pull off a set of sections or surfaces for the setting. And this should give me what I need to do what I need to do. I'm missing a piece. Right here. Okay. First thing I need to do is I need to bring this curve around and connect here at a greater distance. So I'm actually going to take this bottom piece off as well. In case I want it. I need to make this wider here at the bottom. Okay, so to do that, I need to start this arc further back. In the process of surfacing, I ended up taking it off the edge of this surface that I built. But that creates too tight of a curve and a pinched attachment, which I don't want anymore. So I'm going to extract an isocurve. I'll be doing a lot of that. Back here far enough that I can get a good curve. Remember, it's all about the drawing. I'm going to duplicate the edges here, duplicate the edges here, and actually I'm going to throw away this one because it's going to be inaccurate, because I need to untrim the edges here. So I've untrimmed that. I'm going to go ahead and cut that back off at the proper height. It's easy to do. I'm going to simply extrude the ring bore and use that to trim it off. And I'll go back and extract those borders. Again, duplicate those borders. So this is my first step. A bottom rail. It's that bottom rail I want to change. I'm going to try and split this with that curve and see what I get if I do an extend by arc to point. Come over here with near snap. Trying to be deliberate. Take a look at that and see what I think. I think it's a little too fat through here, so I'm going to undo the split. I'm going to come back to my surfaces and extract another isocurve a little farther down and resplit this curve with that isocurve. Extend again by arc to point. I like that better. That's fine. Throw away that isocurve because I know it's inaccurate. I want to make sure that this curve is flush onto the ring bore. It's easy for me to double check it. I'll just extrude the ring bore and do a pull command with delete input equals yes, so I don't have two in the same place. And you can see how that pulled that. I'll undo and redo so you can see that pulling that flesh down onto that surface. Flesh down. So, there. These two segments of curve are now no longer useful. Okay. So there's the bottom rail. Excuse me. I want to create a new cross section here at the end. To do that, I'm going to extract an isocurve off of this piece of prong that I extracted. And snap, so I catch right off the end here. And I'm going to want a section that does something along the lines of what I have here. And to get that, I'm going to need to now, I want to duplicate this kind of a section over here. Now I have this straight. It's going to be better if I do the same kind of step. But to know where that step takes place, I need to now duplicate this rail. Join those together. Okay. Going to split that rail with the same isocurve I used to split the bottom rail. I'm going to do an extend by arc to point again. Near snap again. I'm going to rotate my view till I get something that I like. That's fine. And I can use that to trim off that bit of isocurve right there. Duplicate edges to steal this final cross section. Okay. And I want this to come up and capture the top here. So actually I'm going to explode it, control click to remove that one segment, and I can join the rest together. Be aware, please, that what I'm really doing is resurfacing the front edge of this piece. I'm not going to do anything really back here. It's what's happening up in front that matters. Now, in the process, I'm probably going to resurface this whole area. But my focus is this front edge, this inner edge. Pardon me. Having a cable emergency here. Cords wrapped around each other. I'm going to do a blend curve, adjustable, from here to the edge here. Okay? Turn off my object snaps. I'm going to pull this point way in. Pull this one down a little bit. I'm trying to kind of duplicate this kind of soft ramp I have elsewhere in the design. I've got that. I'm going to pull that onto this prong surface, making sure to delete the original. You can see how much that changed that. It pulled it right on there like a magnet. Remember, the difference between pull and project is that project uses the C-plane like a projector lamp and projects the curves directly perpendicular onto the surface from the C-plane. Pull uses the surface as a magnet that kind of shrink wraps or sucks the curves onto the surface. It gives you a very different result. So, I have that. I can delete this portion of the curves. to join it together. I'll just be exploding it again later, but I'm going to join it together right now, just for my own organization purposes. There's the final cross-section at the end. So that modification has been successful. Going to steal this rail, which should still line up perfectly because this is unchanged. Join those together. Going to steal this rail and join them together. So I have a rail and a rail and a rail and a rail and a rail. Rails partitioning off this surface, and the two side surfaces. So the rails are good. What I'm going to need now is more cross sections than what I've had. Now I could make a cross section right there if I wanted to, but I don't. I think I want to take it back a little bit further than that. So I'm going to extract another isocurve right here. That should be far enough back, which means I can delete this one. I'm going to extrude this normal to surface, extrude, fly out ribbon, or extrude curve normal to surface. Pick this surface and pull out. And you can see that gave me a perpendicular extrusion. Going to extend that surface. Somewhat of a self-generated cutting plane. Now that is not planar, and I like to keep my sections planar whenever I can. So I'm going to go into wireframe, rotate this view until I get something that looks pretty well in an average straight up and down view of both this section of the shank and that extrusion. I'm going to set a C-plane to the view. Type plan in. Select my section here and do a cutting plane. And I'll just make that cutting plane an average of this surface. I can move it into position if I want. And then put my viewport properties back to perspective so I can see better what I've made. That looks good. Throw away my extrusion and give myself an intersection. Change the color of this. I've got a lot of curves here that I don't want to get involved. There, just surfaces. And I'm going to do an intersection. Actually, I'm going to join those together first. Otherwise, Rhino will give me an intersection at each point where those touch each other, which should make a mess. So that joined together block of surfaces, polysurface, and that new cutting plane I made. I'm going to hide this in case I want it later. Okay, that's a good section. So, I have this section and that section. I know it's going to have a hard time holding on to this information as it cuts around this bend. So it's going to want a cross section there as well. I'm going to try and find a good way to set that up. C-plane to view, plan, cutting plane, I'm going to want that section to be somewhere right in here. Set my viewport back to perspective. Take a look at what I have. That's not bad. I'll get another intersection. Hide that in case I want to again later. Okay. Now this becomes interesting because of course that section does not reach all the way to these rails. I have to draw a new section. Also, it's interesting because I think I would like the angle to be something more like this. If at first you don't succeed, try again. Set C-plane to viewport, plan, set cutting plane, and actually, yeah, and I want this to be more kind of straight back in. I think. I'm not sure. Actually, this seems a little more logical right now. I'm going to get some strange tensioning, torsioning around that. There's just no way around it. It's too extreme. I'll try and see what I get. Nope, didn't want that one. I want Control-Shift-H to unhide. I want this one. Need to get an intersection with these rails as well. And that'll just give me a point, a couple of point objects, but that's fine. Want to set a C-plane to this object and then hide it. That C-plane is in the same plane as that cross-section, so now I can use non-uniform scale to get what I want. I'm going to explode and remove these two sections. Okay, and I'm going to remove this section. And I can, well, I'll leave that. I can just delete it, but I'll leave it for now. I'm going to draw a straight line point. And I am going to do a blend curve. Let's see, adjustable. Use the points to give myself something similar. To what I had. Not really loving what's happening here, so I'm going to do a blend curve again. If I'm going to resurface it, which I am, I may as well get something closer to what I want. If I push this base point way up and bring the top point, the fine control point, down close, I'll get a much squarer cross section across there, which is kind of what I want. I don't want such a slope off the back. That's better. Join these together just for sake of organization. Put them on the white layer. go back to my top seat plane. There, those are my cross sections. That's what I'm going to resurface. I'm going to trim off any of those I don't need. I'm going to bring back that main cutting plane here and use it to split this. Hide that again. Change these to a different layer. Before I do, I'll join all the pieces together at the end here. And this is what I'm going to commence surfacing from. I'm going to explode these two sections. I should have one here, here, and here. One here, here, and there. Okay, so begin surfacing. Surface tab, curve network, rail, edge section, curve section, other side, rail, edge section, curve section. Ah, problem. Obviously I have a broken rail there. Join those back together. Rail. They have to all end up in a rectangular sort of format. Surface section, curve section. And now I'll commence surfacing the top. I want this surface to listen to the surrounding surfaces as much as possible. So whenever possible, I will pick an edge rail or an edge section, like here. And then curve. And the last one, surface rail, surface section, curve section. Join this together. And for comparison, do you see the scene? I'm not sure why that's there. I had copied yes on that, okay. I'm going to do that surface and curve network again. Edge rail, edge section, curve section. I want to make sure that this gives me the maximum. See, I want to go to curvature, so I get a very smooth connection across there. Better, okay, but there is still a tension there. is the steepness. Coming off of here. Though that doesn't seem very steep to me. I'll try a little softer cross section. Actually, I don't want to hide it. I want it there for reference. Grid snaps on. Very hard to do any point adjusting if you've got grid snap on. That's a slightly lower section. Let's see if that makes a difference. Edge rail, edge rail, edge section, curve section, curve section. Did make a difference. Still have a little bit of a buckle there. Going to surface it one more time. This time pushing curvature from here. I went back to tangency that time to see if it would work without having to go more extreme. But I'm still seeing a buckle. Okay, that's as much detail as I'm going to go into. This won't even show in the 3D print. I like to be as thorough as I can be, but that slight ripple, I really hate it. I have to admit it, I really hate that ripple. Okay, when you are faced with a ripple that you hate, like that, and I'm having a hard time adjusting my viewport because I'm choking for resources here with the video recording. Okay, I want to get as straight on shot on that seam as I can get. C-plane to view. Okay, I should already have the plane that cut that. I do. Okay, so actually I don't need to set the C-plane, I'm just going to offset this 2 millimeters. Nope. 0.6 millimeters. 0.4. trim this out. And then do blend surfaces all the way through here. Do a blend surface here. A blend surface here. And then surface and curve network for the remainder, so I get a good fit. For that, so I'll do surface and curve network here. It's a weird direction for that, but okay. So this piece here, curve, blend curve, quick one is fine. And surface and curve network. All edges except for that one curve. Okay, before I do anything more, I'm going to join this together and see if I got a better result. Because if I didn't, now this is smooth, but this is kinked. And I could see that it was wanting to do something strange there. So, part of the problem, class, you see this really sheared surface I got when I was doing the match surface? It is making things difficult for me now. So, try blend surface. See how that looks. That's nice. Okay, I'm golden. Now the only thing I need to do is I need to extract this surface. I need to extend it, because there's no guarantee that that blend curve, actually, you know what, it's good enough. Okay, so I have this portion finished. What I need to do now is to trim things back. These are poly surfaces that I've pulled apart from an existing model. I know that the cutting with curves is going to be, with surfaces is going to be hard. Remember, the strongest cutting tool is a curve to trim with. So I'm going to extract this edge, duplicate this edge, join those curves together, and use them to trim. And you can see it's already fighting me. Extract that surface. Try and trim just a surface instead of a poly surface, and it worked. I have a little scrap here I can throw away. So that is working. Now I have the same issue here. So I'm going to duplicate an edge, join them together, trim, and delete the curve. And that should give me everything I need. Join, join, join. Not going to bother with those because I didn't need them. That's my section, my piece to prepare with. Transform, rotate, 0, copy, yes, 180. Oops, it was already set to copy, yes, apparently. There. That's good. Okay. to select everything that I've got that's being replaced by it to extract. Copy equals no. Now since I can't click on the purple because it's locked, this is no longer going to match because of that whole little scrap left inside. Other side, the same thing. Should be good. Join. Duplicate border. Actually, before I do that, I'm going to analyze naked edges. I expect everything around the inside there to be open, but there are a couple of extras here. Border. Extrude my ring bore. And trim. And trim. Know that there are some naked edges here. They're right in this seam. These little pinpoints won't affect printing, so I'm not going to go after them. This is the surface I said I had to extend and trim back off because the blend curve wouldn't be accurate enough. And sure enough, I was right. That should be fine. Put that on a different layer. And I've repaired it. That oversized area has been cleaned away. Undersized area, I should say. Now it's thicker and stronger and ready to go. Okay? So that's repairing the first problem. Thanks for watching.